The slow ship, the Galactic Council chamber, gleamed with bioluminescent panels, casting prismatic light across the assembled delegates. Captain Elena Vasquez stood alone at the speaker's platform, her worn uniform a stark contrast to the iridescent robes and adaptive armor of the alien dignitaries surrounding her. "You cannot be serious, human." The voice belonged to High Adjudicator Threlkos, of Ashiran, whose crystalline exoskeleton refracted the chamber's light into dancing fragments. His mandibles clicked with what Elena had learned to recognize as contempt. "Your species offers that vessel?" On the holographic display above them, the HSS Vanguard rotated slowly, a brutish wedge of gray armor, plating, and angular hull sections that looked like it had been assembled in a scrapyard. Compared to the sleek Vacheron corvettes beside it, with their elegant curves and shimmer shields, the human dreadnought resembled a flying cathedral made of stone. "The Vanguard is combat-ready." "Adjudicator," Elena said, keeping her voice level, "we've answered the call to defend Arcturus II." Soft laughter rippled through the council chamber. A Crixian delegate, all tentacles and bioluminescent communication, flashed patterns that Elena's translator rendered as, "The slow species sends its slowest ship. How perfectly human." More laughter. Elena's jaw tightened, but she held her ground. 5 years commanding the Vanguard had taught her patience. Humanity had only joined the Galactic Council 3 decades ago, and they were still the newcomers, the primitives who'd barely mastered FTL while other species had been sailing the stars for millennia. "The Ravager Collective is bringing 400 ships," Threlkos continued, his tone now edged with something sharper than mockery. Desperation poorly masked as authority. "Arcturus II has 6 million colonists. We need speed. We need modern warfare doctrine. Not," he gestured dismissively at the hologram, "not whatever relic museum piece humanity has dragged from its archives." "The Vanguard has a full crew complement of 300, Elena replied. "Enhanced armor plating, redundant power systems, and 200-year-old technology," interrupted Counselor Vessis Primi, a Lothran whose silver skin pulsed with neural-linked data streams. "Captain Vasquez, your ship's mass drive is 3 generations obsolete. Your weapons tracking systems require, forgive me, manual targeting. The Ravagers will tear through you in seconds." Elena met the Lothran's gaze. "Then you'll have 1 less ship to worry about." The chamber fell silent. Threlkos leaned forward. "You would throw away 300 human lives on pride?" "I would throw away 300 human lives to save 6 million others," Elena said quietly. "Isn't that why we're all here?" For a moment something shifted in the Adjudicator's crystalline features. Not respect, perhaps, but recognition. He looked away first. "Very well. The Council accepts Earth's contribution. You will take position in the outer defensive perimeter with the other auxiliary vessels." He waved a manipulator appendage. "The primary fleet will handle the Ravagers. You need only appear formidable enough to discourage flanking maneuvers. In other words," Elena thought, "stay out of the way and try not to die too obviously." "Understood." Adjudicator. As the holographic display shifted to fleet positioning, Elena caught the eye of Admiral Kethron, a grizzled Zathari whose species had been humanity's first ally on the Council. The reptilian warrior gave her the smallest nod. Acknowledgement, or perhaps condolence. She returned it and left the chamber. 12 hours later, Elena stood on the bridge of the Vanguard, watching Arcturus II grow larger in the viewscreen. The colony world was a blue-green jewel against the void, ringed by defense platforms that glittered like diamonds on wire. "Captain." The voice came from everywhere and nowhere. Artemis, the ship's AI, woven so deeply into the Vanguard's systems that distinguishing between vessel and intelligence had long since become meaningless. "Galactic Fleet is taking formation. We've been assigned Grid 77 Delta. Outer Rim, minimal engagement probability. Of course we have." Elena settled into her command chair, its worn padding conforming to her like an old friend. Around her, the bridge crew moved with practiced efficiency. Lieutenant Chen at weapons, Commander Okonkwo at tactical, Ensign Park monitoring engineering. No gleaming holographic displays here. No neural link interfaces, just screens, buttons, and human hands. "Artemis," Elena said quietly. "How are we looking?" "All systems optimal, Captain. Sledgehammer protocol standing by, encrypted and isolated from galactic tactical networks as ordered." Elena's fingers drummed once against the armrest. Good. Let's hope we don't need it. Hope is not a strategy. No, Elena agreed. Watching the galactic fleet arrange itself in textbook defensive formation, fast corvettes on the flanks, heavy cruisers in the center, the vanguard pushed so far to the periphery it was practically a spectator. But sometimes it's all we have. Contact, Lieutenant Chen announced. Multiple FTL signatures. Distance, 4 light minutes and closing. On the tactical display, red icons began to bloom like blood drops in water. 400 of them. The Ravager Collective had arrived. All hands to battle stations, Elena ordered, her voice carrying through every corridor of her ancient, lumbering ship. This is not a drill. Repeat, this is not a drill. As alarms wailed and her crew rushed to their posts, Elena watched the enemy fleet tear toward them at speeds the Vanguard could never match. And she smiled. They always underestimated the slow ship. They always did. First Blood, the Ravager Collective didn't believe in formations. Elena watched the tactical display as 400 pirate vessels, a mongrel fleet of stolen cruisers, retrofitted transports and predatory raiders, swarmed toward Arcturus II like locusts descending on a crop. No elegance, no coordination, just overwhelming numbers and the hungry momentum of beings who'd spent centuries taking what others built. They're not even pretending to have discipline, Commander Okonkwo muttered from the tactical station. His dark fingers danced across the console, feeding data to the fleet coordination network. It's going to be a bloodbath. That's what they're counting on, Elena replied. Terror is half their arsenal. The galactic fleet shifted in response. Vacheron corvettes breaking formation, their sleek hulls shimmering as shields activated. Zathari heavy cruisers began charging their plasma batteries, energy signatures spiking across Elena's sensors. It was textbook defensive posture, beautiful even, each ship moving with the kind of graceful precision that only came from centuries of refined military doctrine. The Vanguard sat at the edge of it all, a gray boulder in a river of quicksilver. Fleet command to all vessels. Admiral Kethron's voice crackled across the comm. Engage at optimal range. Corvettes will harass and scatter. Heavy cruisers will anchor the line. Auxiliary vessels, a pause heavy with meaning, maintain position and provide support fire when able. Acknowledged, Fleet Command, Elena responded. To Artemis, she added quietly, translation, stay out of the way and don't embarrass us, the AI replied dryly. Lieutenant Chen snorted from the weapons station. The distance collapsed quickly. At 3 light minutes, the Ravager fleet split into 3 prongs, classic hammer and anvil, crude but effective against a defensive position. The galactic corvettes surged forward to meet them, weapons already firing, trails of energy cutting through the void like luminescent threads. The first ships died beautifully. A Vacheron corvette, too aggressive in its pursuit, caught a broadside from 3 Ravager frigates and simply disintegrated, its shields overloading in a cascade of golden light before the hull beneath vaporized into particles. A Ravager cruiser, in turn, took a direct hit from a Zathari plasma battery and tumbled away, burning from the inside out. Contact incoming, Grid 77 Delta, Ensign Park called out. 3 bogies breaking from the main group. Looks like torpedo boats. Elena's eyes narrowed. Small, fast, expendable. The kind of ships pirates use to probe defenses and draw fire. Smart. Send the cheap ones to test the slow human vessel before committing real assets. Artemis, give me an engagement solution. They're running evasive patterns. Speed advantage 3-1. Estimated time to effective weapons range 90 seconds. Around them, the battle was intensifying. The tactical display had become a nightmare of overlapping trajectories. Red and blue icons merging, fragmenting, winking out. The galactic fleet was holding but barely. For every Ravager ship destroyed, 2 more pushed through the gaps. Captain, Commander Okonkwo said, his voice tight. Grid 55 Charlie just collapsed. The Lothran cruiser Bright Meridian is gone. Ravagers are pushing through that sector. Elena saw it on the display. A wedge of pirate vessels driving straight toward Arcturus II's orbital platforms, exploiting the hole in the defensive line. The Vacheron corvettes tried to reposition, but they were already engaged, already bleeding. Fleet Command, this is Vanguard, Elena said. We can intercept that breakthrough if... Negative, Vanguard. Admiral Kethron cut her off. You're too slow. Hold your position. The Silver Dawn will redirect to... The Silver Dawn, a Crixian destroyer, never got the chance. A Ravager heavy cruiser, a vicious thing that looked like a scorpion made of metal, dropped out of FTL directly above it and opened fire at point-blank range. The destroyer's shields held for perhaps 2 seconds before collapsing, and then the ship was breaking apart, atmosphere venting in frozen plumes. Jesus, Lieutenant Chen whispered. Incoming torpedoes, 60 seconds, Artemis announced. Point defense systems active. Elena made her decision. Helm new heading. 317 Mark IV, full burn. Captain, Okonkwo looked up sharply. That'll take us out of our assigned grid. I know. Elena leaned forward in her chair. Take us toward that breakthrough. We're the only ship in position to intercept before they reach the orbital platforms. Captain, Fleet Command ordered us to. Fleet Command is watching their carefully organized formation get shredded, Elena said flatly. We can sit here and die according to doctrine, or we can do something useful. Helm, execute. The Vanguard groaned as its massive engines ignited, pushing the dreadnought forward with all the grace of a freight train. On the tactical display, their icon began moving, agonizingly slowly toward the Ravager breakthrough. Vanguard, this is Fleet Command. Ketheron's voice carried an edge of anger now. Return to your grid immediately. That is a direct order. Experiencing communications difficulty, Fleet Command, Elena said, nodding to Ensign Park, who cut the channel with barely concealed glee. Artemis, time to intercept? At current speed, 4 minutes. The Ravager wedge will reach firing range on the platforms in 3 minutes, 40 seconds. Then we'll have to convince them we're worth their attention. Chen, I want a full spread on that lead cruiser. Don't worry about kill shots, just make noise. Aye, Captain. Chen's hands moved across his console, and the Vanguard's ancient railguns began to track. Solution locked, firing. The ship shuddered as 6 tungsten core projectiles launched at a fraction of light speed. They were obsolete by galactic standards. Kinetic weapons in an age of energy shielding and plasma batteries. But they were also simple, reliable, and very, very loud on sensors. The lead Ravager cruiser's shields flared as the rounds impacted, dispersing the kinetic energy in blooms of orange light. No real damage, but definitely noticed. The entire wedge began to turn. They're taking the bait, Okonkwo said. 15 ships redirecting toward us. Captain, we can't take on 15 ships. We don't have to take them on, Elena replied, watching the enemy vessels accelerate toward the Vanguard. We just have to slow them down. Buy time for the platforms to... Captain! Park's voice cracked with alarm. Those torpedo boats, they're right on top of us. Elena saw them on the screen. 3 sleek predators that had used the chaos of battle to close the distance unnoticed. They were already launching, dozens of warheads spiraling toward the Vanguard from 3 different vectors. Point defense, full coverage, Elena ordered. Artemis, already engaging. The Vanguard's defensive guns came alive, tracking and firing with machine precision. Torpedoes detonated in chains of white fire, but there were too many coming too fast. 6 got through. The ship rang like a bell as the warheads struck home. Shields that would have shrugged off the impacts on a modern vessel buckled under the concentrated fire. Alarms shrieked across the bridge as secondary explosions rippled through the outer hull. Shields down to 40%, Park reported. Hull breaches on decks 7 and 9. Damage control teams responding. Elena tasted copper. She'd bitten her tongue during the impact. Status on those torpedo boats? Still in range, reloading, Chen said. And the main wedge is 2 minutes out. Captain, we need to withdraw. The logical choice. The smart choice. Pull back, regroup, let someone faster handle this. Elena looked at the tactical display, at the 15 Ravager ships converging on her position, at the orbital platforms beyond, glittering and vulnerable, housing civilian evacuation shuttles that were still loading, at the 3 torpedo boats circling for another strike. Negative, she said. We hold here. Chen, target those torpedo boats. Okonkwo. Reroute power from non-essential systems to forward shields. Artemis, she paused, her hand moving to the command override panel on her chair's armrest. Begin preliminary calculations for Protocol Sledgehammer. The bridge went silent, except for the alarms. Captain, Artemis said quietly, deploying Sledgehammer in fleet engagement with multiple civilian assets will likely be interpreted as... I know what it'll be interpreted as, Elena interrupted. Just run the numbers. I want options. Acknowledged. The torpedo boats were repositioning, ready to strike again. The Ravager wedge was closing, weapons already charging. On the wider tactical display, the galactic fleet was buckling in 3 more sectors. Ships dying in brilliant, terrible flowers of light. And the Vanguard, the slow, obsolete, laughable human ship, sat directly in the path of annihilation. Elena's fingers drummed once against her armrest. All hands, she announced across ship-wide comms, her voice steady. This is the captain. We're about to get hit hard. Brace for impact, trust your training, and remember. She allowed herself a small, fierce smile. They always underestimate us. Always, Artemis agreed. The enemy opened fire. End Part 2.